This is Sultan Al Jaber. He is the head of the United Arab Emirates fossil fuels industry. He was also this year's president of COP28. He would have you believe that when he says there is no science supporting fossil fuels as one of the causes of global warming, that what he meant was that we should stop our reliance on fossil fuel completely. Hypocrite or changed man. We discuss COP28 alongside Gaza and the Labour Party. I'm Harvey John. Welcome to the Critical Mass News Review for December the 15th. We begin once more with coverage of Gaza. Israel, as we have previously reported, has conducted a war against the civilian population of Gaza, bombing their homes, driving them from their land. They have claimed this has been done to defeat Hamas, but it is not Hamas we see suffering. If Hamas is children without families, grown men without limbs, women without hope, then Hamas has suffered enough. But this is not Hamas. These are Gazans who have suffered for generations. In such circumstances, you might well lose hope. But for some Palestinians, some hope has been restored through Connecting Palestine. This organisation, set up by Egyptian sisters Myrna and Yara El-Hibawi, was initially aimed at helping members of their own family. Starting on the 29th of October, the not-for-profit organisation set out to secure eSIMs for those in Gaza so that their loved ones could stay connected. 3 weeks later, they had received over $1 million in donations. This tiny acorn of an idea has meant that not only could families separated by Israeli bombardment stay in touch, but Palestinians have a means to tell their story to the world after Israel sabotaged their communication system. If keeping in touch is important, even more so is providing Palestinians with hope by the world showing that it still cares. The international community can play its part by ensuring Israel stops actively breaking international law, but as Antonio Guterres points out in regards to the United Nations,
take the Security Council, the preeminent forum for the peaceful resolution of international disputes, is paralyzed by geostrategic divisions.
This week, just 2 countries opposed a motion calling for an immediate ceasefire.
We regretfully could not support it.
The United States and the United Kingdom.
But we cannot vote in favour of a resolution which does not condemn the atrocities Hamas committed against innocent Israeli civilians.
As we have said before, when you are faced with a genocide, you either support it or you don't. To abstain is to have no opinion, but in practice to support it. As Marilyn Tyzek points out, if they had any shame, both the US and UK would hang their heads. That they don't. That they continue to support a war that has primarily led to the intentional deaths of innocent civilians and children informs us of the type of leaders we now have. We must not lose hope. Ordinary people have shown that they are not paralysed, that they have marched, they have chanted, they have written to MPs, they have signed petitions. This week, many will take strike action. These actions, no matter how small they may appear, give hope to the Palestinians who need to know we are not forgetting them. You might think that saving the planet should be priority number 1 for politicians across the globe. Unfortunately, there is not much to be done ahead of the next round of elections, so it really seems that we might have to wait a bit longer. The annual jamboree, known as COP28, indicating they have now met 28 times since the first meeting in Berlin in 1995. The famous Paris Accords, where the International Treaty on Climate Change was actually agreed on, did not occur until 2016. Every year since, leaders have come together to agree that something needs to be done. And then forget to do anything until they come back together in a year to find out, surprise, surprise, things are getting worse. It's not just that the climate emergency is getting worse, but the COP meetings are looking more and more cynical with each passing year. This year, the president of COP was Sultan Al Jaber, also the chief executive of the United Arab Emirates National Oil Company, ADNOC. So no conflict there. Teresa Anderson of ActionAid has explained why we need this change to things.
In a climate emergency, we really need a new theory of change, and we really need to hold our governments to account when they're not taking account of the needs of their citizens, their youth, let alone their sisters and brothers around the world. And so what we need to do is really build people power, and that means working with people who are really on the front line of the climate emergency. And as the climate movement, we need to work much better and in solidarity with those who are working like on climate migration, on humanitarian disasters, farmers' movements, youth movements, women's rights, and especially Indigenous peoples, the people who are really at the centre of the climate story. We need to make sure that solutions work for them and are not, as they've been thought of, as an afterthought.
Al Jaber did not get off to a good start, appearing to deny the science behind reducing fossil fuels. As Marilyn Tyzak in creatingsocialism.org wrote, the UAE appears oblivious to the impact of climate change is having on its own region. Beaches are being floodlit for nighttime bathing because the days are unbearably hot. It is also predicted that the portions of the country may be uninhabitable later this century, yet the UAE plans to increase oil production capacity by a quarter this decade and gas capacity by 150%. The eventual statement issued was the worst of all outcomes because it was being driven by the fossil fuel industry, who were determined to avoid an absolute commitment to stopping all fossil fuel production. As the German foreign minister noted, it was a starting point, but we don't need more starting points. We've had them for 28 years. We need an end point. And the one thing everyone seems agreed on is this is not it. We are now predicted to have the warmest year on record. Again. It is time for change. But if we are putting the fox in charge of the hen house, it might be time for the hens to take matters into their own hands. That Sir Keir Starmer is a fan of Margaret Thatcher should really come as no surprise to anybody who has watched the Labour Party lurch to the right over the past couple of years. That he used a column in the Sunday Telegraph to declare his love of the Iron Lady should also come as no surprise. Since becoming Labour leader, Sir Keir has been on a mission to roll back the frontiers of socialism, first from his own party and then by ensuring that there'll be no socialist alternative to the free market ideology so loved by Thatcher. Summarising Sir Keir's article, Mike Stanton points out on creatingsocialism.org, Starmer's entire argument rests on an assumption that the present Tories need to be replaced because they are not enough like Thatcher, unlike Starmer's new look Labour, who hates socialism and socialists just as much as Thatcher did. So, Labour will act tough on immigration instead of just talking tough like the Tories. And with a Trumpian flourish, Starmer promises to get the country back to greatness. Of course, it could all be working. Labour are on a course for a massive majority at the next election. If current polling is correct, the current makeup of the Commons could reverse with Labour having 342 seats to the Tories' 202. But as Dave Middleton points out on creatingsocialism.org, those headline figures only tell part of the story. Diving deeper into current polling reveals that Starmer is also on course to lose almost 2 million 2019 Labour voters, with only 82% of Labour supporters saying they will vote Labour next time. Labour's poll lead is largely based on collapsing Tory vote, who are currently retaining just 54% of their 2019 vote. The thing is, disgruntled Tories are not switching to Labour in huge numbers, but they are likely to either not vote or vote for a party to the right of the hapless Tories. Not that any of this will bother Starmer too much. Thank you for watching. Until next time, this has been Critical Mass News, and this is your host, Harvey John, signing off.